Hello, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us today as we hold space and dialogue in highlighting some key activists and change makers in the Greater Toronto Area. And I am pleased to be joined by my sister, by my friend, Stachen Frederick, who's the Executive Director of Frontlines. And Stachen has agreed to just hold some space with all of us to learn more about her work, her career, particularly in the area of community service, and to learn more about her journey in engaging in this work. So, to begin, Stachen, can you kindly introduce yourself to the viewers and share more about your role and responsibilities at Frontlines?
Sure. So, I thanks, of course, for taking the time to spend with me and have this conversation, and really sort of talk about the work that I do in community. And I really I don't really hold myself to a position or title, but the work that I do. And so that is about being a community developer, community activist. And I just happen to position myself in different places. And so I am the executive director of Frontlines, which is a youth charity in one of the poorest ridings, not just in Toronto, but across Ontario. I'm also the founder of an organization called Braids for AIDS that seeks to raise awareness around HIV/AIDS within the African and Caribbean communities here in Canada, but also internationally. And a lot of our work, because I'm present here, is done within the Toronto community. And I'm also a professor at Sheridan College. And I even see my role as a professor is around being a community advocate within that space, because I am there being able to pass on information, my activism through passing on knowledge to other people. And so if I go to all of these different roles that I find myself in, because there seems to be an intersectionality which is around race and my gender and my age, and just being so connected to the community. So using those parts of me to do some advocacy for the community, look at bringing in resources, look at partnership, highlighting the voices of those who are sometimes voiceless. But even in that, I find that there's an icky feeling, because I do not want to, when I hear about people being voiceless, I just think that they don't have the opportunities to have voice. It's not that they're voiceless, right? And so it's also creating of that space for individuals. And as being a leader is about finding opportunities for those who are in my care as a leader, not just the participants, but my staff. It's also about the development of my community. 100% of my staff are Black. And it's in the two organizations that I lead. So I also have that role and responsibility of nurturing their development, because they are from the Black community.
Thank you so much for that. And which is a great segue into question two. So, for those of you who do not know, Stachen Frederick is a multi award winning practitioner and change maker in the Greater Toronto Area, including not only within the GTA, but also being recognized for her work and programming, even from her home country in Trinidad. And so, Stachen, it's too many to list, and so I just invite you to go read the bio. And so, Stachen, you have led extensive initiatives serving Canada's Black and underrepresented youth, as mentioned, not only in the Greater Toronto Area, but in Ontario and Trinidad more broadly. Can you share why your community service and activism has so primarily focused on young people? And what are three lessons you have learned about yourself as you've journeyed in this field?
That's such a heavy and deep question. So, from a very young age, I had this unique sort of this compass leading me down that that part. And so, even at this like little 8-year-old, telling my mom I'm going to go abroad and I'm going to work with youth. So it had something that was already ingrained in me. Even the other day, as I was packing up my house, I came across a book, the scrapbook that I have. And in that scrapbook, I found a testimonial that the vice principal of my high school had written about me, and it's the exact same person that I am today. Talked about a vivacious young woman who have leadership skills, have initiative, does things with her community, with youth, does HIV/AIDS. It's almost like the exact 17-year-old that she was talking about is now this woman, 2 decades later. So I think that is within me. And, a lot of times when when people ask like, how do you find your purpose? Look at what you have always been attracted to. And that's what I've been attracted to. And, understanding that if people are not given the best at a young age, it's very unlikely that they would be able to catch up later on in their life, right? And so where I look at my continuum of my interest and my impact, I think it's with the young people, because their minds are so impressionable. And so let's focus there. It doesn't mean that my work hasn't. I've done work with women and men, even some men in prisons, and all those pieces. But sometimes I have a framework of prevention as opposed to intervention. And I think, again, working with people, young people, and they keep me young. People say like I look young, even for my age. So I think it's also that having that youth engagement as well. So that was the piece. But you did ask another piece to your question, if I just wanted to make sure that I answered.
Yes, some lessons that you've learned along your journey.
Oh, okay. So three lessons. One is there are many different paths to the same outcome. And, that is one thing that I learned very, early on, or maybe depending on where people say early on in life. But, because being a very smart young person, and growing up in the Caribbean, your parents are just like, become a doctor, become an engineer. You had these specific things that they would sort of push you to this particular stream because you are of a certain academic ability. And so, being smart, I went into the science stream in high school. And then it was kind of like, go on to medical school. And even though the end point was in fact for me to do child psychiatry, that's actually what I was saying, because I knew that this doctor part was what was being put in front of me. I said, okay, well, let me find what is the thing that will bring me to what I actually want to do. And so that's how I landed with child psychiatry, of what I wanted to do. But then I migrated, and I not into the confines of the walls of the family, and I came on around particular subjects, and so coming to learn about psychology and social work, and those are the parts that I could take. It didn't have to go through that medical sort of part to get to what, because I don't think I would have been happy. I would have done chemistry, even though I'm very good at chemistry. I would have done chemistry, but then I'm like, if I didn't finish med school, would I be shaking test tubes for the rest of my life? And so, as I, look back on my life, it's that, I am in the place that I wanted to be, which is working with youth. So that's one particular piece. The second piece, which I mean is so cliche all the time, which is trust your instinct. Some people will call it vibes, some people would say spirits, whatever it might be that people will call it, but trust your vibes. It has never proven me wrong, with the vibes. If it's to, let go of a bad relationship, if it's to let go of somebody in the workspace, if it's, let go, if there's an opportunity that's being presented that looks on the outside fruitful and nice, and it's the best salary and all these different things, that is the thing. And then I think the third piece is, everybody have their motivation in life. I'm definitely not one that goes after money. And so, I've had these conversations with, a lot of people who I mentor and coach, and I say that, money is not everything. It is about how people treat you, the places that you find yourself, and because you could go somewhere and have more money, and not have, the best sort of health or and wellness, and in fact health is wealth. So I think those are, three of sort of my life lessons.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And so, keeping that in mind, and knowing that your work has taken you in so many different spaces and have connected with so much community members, and you see at the front end, in real time, sort of the impacts of racism in its many forms, really wanting to invite a reflection on, as we celebrate Black History Month, what does the Canadian Black identity mean to you?
Ooh. Jodie, I don't know, if I'm ready for. Oh, what does the Canadian Black identity mean to me? It is probably one of the hardest places to be, but one of the most rewarding places to be. I have talked about my experience as a Black person living in Canada. And my identity, of course, looks different for somebody else, right? Another Black person. But again, when I grew up, in Trinidad, and I always tell people, I saw Black people in positions of power growing up. And so coming to Canada, and not seeing my people in positions of power, had a kind of psychological thing, in my mind, right? And then also just knowing, again, all the injustices that happened to my sisters, my brothers, and whatnot, and then having to fight for that, right? So I think it's, the part about, having it as being, something that is heavy. It's also something that is that I take quite a lot of pride in, because I've been able to help my community in various ways. I don't even know where to really sort of unpack that particular question, but I'll leave with that because there's just so many conflicting parts of the identity. But I am so proud to be Black. I think we are in an amazing time in history, that the time is now, and we need to continue to push forward. And I was having a conversation earlier on today, and because I'm thinking about really sort of launching my consultancy in greater depth. And the person asked me a question who I was talking to is like, what makes you think that you will able to create the amount of change that I'm thinking about within this thing? And I said to him, I said, I don't know what is happening, if there's this shift in the world or whatnot, right? But in November, I had a conversation with an educational institution around a scholarship. That was November. By the end of this month, there will be the release of that scholarship. I had a conversation about what I would like to see in program elements. And just yesterday, I got an email saying that they're moving forward with it. And so, for me, it is, the time is now. There's this energy, this cosmic energy, don't know whatever people want to call it, but there's this energy of now, and that change must come. So in Black History Month, I'm just reveling in this beauty of what I'm seeing, but knowing that there's so much work ahead still.
And that is a great segue into question number 4, into what brings you joy in doing this work.
Yeah. Oh, so I mean, I've been having these conversations, so often of late. But what brings me joy is the passing on of things that I've created. Whether it's Braids for AIDS, and being able to pass it on to another Black woman for her to take up leadership. Is this baton? That's what I kind of see it like. I'm this female version of Atto Bolton running. I've made the sprint. I've done it, but then pass it on, and that there's somebody thinks so. That is what So even the other day, I had a young lady reach out to me who there's an organization that I created many years ago out in Ottawa called the Ottawa Young Black Professionals. And you pass on something, sometimes you don't look back and whatnot, but here is somebody reaching out and is saying, like, I want to talk to you. This is what this particular organization has done for me. This is what thing. And that brought me so much joy to see the continuation of, it's like a baby. You create something and you want to see the next. So that is what gives me joy in the work that I do.
Thanks so much for that. And so as we come to a close of our time together, can you share with our viewers one affirmation or a quote that inspires you, particularly during challenging times, that you'd want to share with the community?
There is always somebody out there that needs your service. So keep pressing on. You bring a uniqueness to the world. We are all uniquely created. I don't have the same nose as somebody. I don't have the same, eyebrows. That we may resemble people, but we all just even have, just from our outward beings, have a uniqueness. And then that is the same thing that we have in us, is a uniqueness. And you were meant to be here, so shine brightly, shine always. Again, somebody will always need your service.
On that beautiful note, Stachen, I'd like to say thank you so much for providing your time and your wisdom and your experiences and just sharing it with community today. To all of you who joined on, thank you so very much for logging in and learning more about the change makers and the change agents that we have in our local community. My name is Jodie Glean, and I'm a member of the illustrious Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. on that note, I'd like to say thank you for joining. Goodbye.